I'm going to Kenya. I have not been. I'm going in June. I'm going by myself. So anybody wants to come along. For real?
I just came for the coffee.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah.
Today's guest is super special. I don't want to waste much time bringing her on. Give me a little test, Grandma.
Yes.
That sounds perfect. She's got the best mic out of all of us. What's up, everybody? I'm Mitchell Goldstein, and I'd like to welcome you back to the second episode of the Questions Over Coffee podcast. If you haven't seen the first episode yet, here's what I'm going to ask. Check out this one, and hopefully when you love it, go check out the first episode after. But today's guest is super special. I don't want to waste much time bringing her on. She's hard to define. Our next guest is an entrepreneur. Her real estate team sells about 300 homes per year. They're approaching $500,000 donated to charity, and these donations are growing at an exponential rate. She's a wife, a mother of three, and she's my good friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheena Saydam. Let's go.
Thank you.
What's up, Sheena? How you doing?
I am awesome.
Well, the headphones are there if you want them. If you want to skip them, it's totally up to you. But I want to first say thank you for making time. I know you're incredibly busy. You do a ton of things. And to come up to Baltimore to make time for me and our viewers, I just want to really say thanks.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm grateful for you. I'll say when I got your text, I was like just super overwhelmed that day. And I've been reading a book. What's new, right? And it's Martha Beck's The Way of Integrity. And she had said, when you find these good humans, these soul teachers is what she calls them, don't question it. Just say yes. Just say yes. So I went, okay, just yes. I have to do this. I have to be near you. So I'm grateful for you.
That means a lot to me because as somebody that has that like calling, that inkling at times, it's not always easy to say yes to. And sometimes it's easier to just kind of like move it to the side. So the fact you stepped up and stepped into this, I'm grateful because talking on camera and podcasting isn't the easiest thing, but you're somebody whose story is incredible. And I think the more people that can know it, the better. So I kind of want to just dig into you and like what you do, why you do it, and maybe start with your business, but also like the social responsibility aspect tied into it. We'll kind of start there and see where that goes.
Sure.
So why do you do it?
Great question. So it's funny. I'd been doing it for a little while, and about 5 years in, somebody asked me why, and it was on a big stage. So I had to come up with an idea, and actually, I think my answer remains the same. I'm an Army brat. I grew up in the military. We moved around a lot. We moved about 12 times before I turned 14, and everywhere we went, my mom volunteered. She was like volunteer of the year everywhere we went. So I think growing up with my dad being in the service, my mom sacrificing, it was kind of in my subconscious. So I think that's the biggest piece.
14 moves before 12 or 12 moves before 14?
I think it was 12 before 14. Yeah.
Any like wild places where you're like, how did I end up here?
Gosh, I was so young, so I don't think I knew any different. But I will say I moved in the middle of first grade from Norfolk, Virginia to Belgium, to the NATO base there. And that felt like a really big transition. But you know what? I think it was the best training to become a real estate agent because I can talk to anyone at any time.
Now, you started as far as like, you obviously were serving with your family and your parents before you became an entrepreneur real estate agent. Did you know you wanted to tie that in immediately, or did it kind of just come to fruition?
Wow, that's a good question. Oh my gosh. I never thought that I would be a business owner. I mean, I have multiple businesses now. I never would have dreamed of it. And that's one thing that I want to leave people with. Is one of probably the biggest thing is getting in a business can be super powerful when it comes to impact. But your question, did you think about it? Hadn't thought about it. I actually was working in nonprofit for many years. I got my master's in national security policy. I had $50,000 in student loan debt. I lost my job the same week that I graduated. And I'm like, I got to figure something out.
You lost your job the same week you graduated?
Yeah.
What's that like? What was your job? And when you lost it, what's next?
I was managing grassroots lobbying at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And it was just a really bad time in the economy. And so I lost my job. Again, I was getting my master's. I just finished my master's in national security policy. I thought I would be an interrogator for the CIA. But the security clearance stuff was taking a long time and I needed money. So my husband suggested real estate. And that's how I got into it. And then we can tell the whole story of the shower truck. That's really how things became really purposeful, intentional with the giving.
Okay. Before we get into that, your husband, Han, who I know as well, he recommended you guys get into it. You guys, I mean, that was your high school boyfriend, not just your husband, right?
Yeah.
So you guys have kind of done this together all along. And will you talk about kind of, and I know we might be jumping ahead, but like how you guys manage all this together? Like you're so busy and you have a family. Like how are you guys doing all this together?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, it's probably not a surprise to anyone who's figured this out. It is the communication. And I think it's respect and respecting, having the same values around growth, and growth means change. So I think we both are very adaptable people. We're very, very different. He is much more introverted. I'm more extroverted. He's much more of a numbers guy. I'm much more of a people person. So we have great communication. We focus on that. We focus on growth and change, and we respect each other. And I think that's a big piece of it. And we stay in our own lanes. I focus on what I'm good at. He focuses what he's good at.
And was that always so easy, or was there butting head moments and that kind of stuff?
The only time where there's butting head is when we cross over that line, and we recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Well, I'm sure that probably didn't come naturally right away. Hey, Noam, will you do me a favor and just that softbox light, will you go ahead and point that towards Sheena? For people who are listening on the audio only version, we do have a video version on YouTube. I encourage you to come check it out. We're just getting started, so you're kind of learning some of the behind the scenes as we go. But Sheena, jumping back into it with you, like seriously, I want to hit on this. You're a boss. Like, to just see what you do and the energy that you have is insane. Like, I really want to give you your credit and like have you kind of give the viewer or the listener advice on whether it's to women or whether it's to people in general on like how to execute like you do. Like it seems fearless. It seems like it's just fueled from such a pure spot. So will you kind of give some advice to the viewers on like what it takes to be you?
Okay, sure. Well, I think the biggest thing is you have to figure out what it takes to be you. The authenticity, I think that's the biggest thing. And I think when I get around people, that's the one thing that they say a lot, either when I'm not listening or in front of them, of like, I feel like you living your life in a manner that suits you gave me permission to do so. I'm going to be 41 in February. I'm wearing freaking space buns. I mean, I don't know. Like that's what I wanted to do. I'm wearing my Justice shirt because that's what I believe. I'm like a walking billboard these days for the things I love. So I think that's the biggest thing to have, I guess, sort of the successes that we've had. I would definitely say that having a growth mindset, I read a lot, and I'm almost in a race with myself to figure out really who I am and who I could become. And yeah, just being open to making mistakes, these things people call failure, like get back up, and just don't worry about what everyone else is saying. Just keep going and find something bigger than yourself to latch yourself onto and give your heart and soul to it. That's really, I guess that's my recipe.
What is that bigger thing that you've latched onto?
Yeah. So it's changed over time. It's gotten bigger. Vision has gotten bigger, as you would expect, I suppose. Right now, I just started a new company with a friend named Kristen. That's interesting, I think, in and of itself, because I cover the DC metro area for real estate. So does my friend. So we are competitors. We created a company called Imagination Generation. The idea is helping small business owners create businesses of significance and wild generosity. Essentially, it's a coaching company and marketing company where we teach you how to grow your business through generosity like we did, build referral businesses. And you also have the opportunity in your subscription to support the Impact Project that month. So we just want to take generosity to the next level.
So you're not only doing it in your business, you're helping others scale it in theirs.
Yes.
How can somebody who's listening that wants to get involved, where can they go to find more info?
Thank you. We have a Facebook group called Imagination Generation.
Okay.
So that's probably the best place, or you can message me on Instagram at selling_DC.
Cool. We will put both of those down in the description below. If you're somebody that's interested in finding out more information, please connect with Sheena. It's going to be well worth your investment because the return on it, I'm sure, is going to be exponential. You're incredible. And the accountability that I think you can provide for some people is super valuable. When did you know you were an entrepreneur? Like, did it start before real estate? Were you selling lemonade as a kid? Or like, do you have a moment where you were like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur now?
Yeah. That's a good question. I guess I don't even spend too much time thinking about that. That's an interesting way of defining me. I try to think of myself as a leader on a journey. You had sent me a few wonderful questions. I love questions. And one of them was, did you always know that you were a leader? And I think back and I'm like, oh, I was definitely bossy. Like I was definitely the one like, let's go do it. And I had this optimism for whatever it was worth. I have to say, I think I give it to my parents. And if there is something bigger out there, I think I was given this, just this personality. I remember this one time in 5th grade, I was big on rollerblading and I was so excited because our whole class was going to go to the roller skating rink. This was in Frankfurt, Germany. And so I was just so excited to share off my rollerblading skills. And I get through the tickets as quickly as possible. I get there into the ring and I start skating around and I wipe out in front of everybody. And I can feel I can still feel it to this day. I can see myself. And then it was like I just got back up because I knew I had more in me. And I think that's just, do that enough and nothing can hurt me. I don't know.
The do that enough, I think, is the point to take because I'm sitting here and I'm like, that's probably not so easy for everyone. Somebody falls down in Frankfurt, Germany. You're not from there. So you're moving a ton. So you're the new kid.
Yes.
Feeling humiliated and you just pop back up and like have this resilience about you that I want everyone to be able to have, but that's not as easy for everyone. But like you said, the more you do it, just get back up. Where it's like our last guest, Danny, made a point where it's like a muscle. Like you keep working it, it gets stronger. And I think that's kind of the same thing here. Where for somebody listening, if it's an embarrassing moment or it's something you feel like you're going out on an edge where you're not used to it, just go and just do it because you're not the only one that feels that way. Sheena, who you probably still feel that at times, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's great to just give the viewer like some advice on like, just go for it. Yeah. Just really go for it. Now, when it came to giving, did you find certain callings like, or certain things in particular, like homelessness or anything like that, where you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be serving? Or is it kind of just hit you like in the moment?
Yeah, it's a good question. I care about a lot of things. And I've discovered, once you start getting into this, you start to learn so much more about the world and all the suffering. And so it can at times feel overwhelming. So I think I did have sort of a reactive response like, oh, the homeless situation is in front of me. I should do something about that. This is in front of me. The good news is that the more we grew sort of our social media, our influence. As more opportunities, more challenges came up, we had a population of people that cared about these various issues. So whereas I may not be able to write a check to all of these places, maybe I could bring some people to be on the board. Maybe I could bring some people who could bring some in-kind donations. So that's kind of how I deal with that.
And are you at a point where, because it seems like you're always involved in something, are you still taking on more as it comes? Or are you kind of tapped out and kind of like, I'll deal with this as we can?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I think what I am trying to do this year, I turned 40 last year, and they said when you turn 40, especially for women, a switch flips. Like you're just like, I just don't care anymore. And that sounds terrible, but I think it's like you don't care about the things that are negative, that are, bringing you down. You really want to get more focused. You realize where you are in your life and YOLO. So that's kind of how I try to live my life is now more than ever trying to set boundaries for myself, trying to really focus on the people and the events and the things that give me energy, and all the rest I'm just saying no to.
Yeah, I think it's Warren Buffett, who's like, you have to say no to 99% of the things. Yeah. That's hard to do at times, especially when you care and you have empathy and you love and you see like struggle and hurt. But you have to realize that like for being your best and giving your best, you have to do it intentionally in certain places two of those places I noticed you're doing it a lot. Baltimore through serving the homeless. I know you brought up the shower truck. We can kind of go into that, but also like a school over in Kisii, Kenya. Is that right?
Yeah.
Why Kisii and why the shower truck and homelessness? And you can kind of pick whichever one.
Yeah. So I think the shower truck was so interesting. I just love the story of that shower truck. I had just started in real estate and, well, I guess I'd been a few years in, and I got invited by this high school friend to a women's empowerment event. And I met her and her husband, and they had been serving the homeless for about 5 or 6 years. And they said, there's no real safe place to get a shower, safe, clean place. At that time, there were some showers available to the homeless, but they didn't have any soap. They didn't have any toiletries. They were sometimes putting men and women into dilapidated schools, and the women were getting assaulted. So they wanted to change that, and they really had a big vision. And I said, I'd love to get behind that. So together, we became one of the largest investors in that shower truck. And for me, I don't think I fully understood the impact that that group was going to make with that shower truck, and it has been extraordinary to see. And one of the things another thing I didn't anticipate, I guess, the first day, it was in August when the shower truck officially opened. It was hot, it was sticky, typical Baltimore day. People were going into the shower, coming out in the same clothing, and I just went, oh my God. Sometimes I shower twice a day, and I'm certainly not putting on my old underwear. That's yeah. So I said, we got to change this. So we went to our community back in DC, and we said, hey, the shower truck has been built. We'd love for you all to support this. So for years, we had Amazon boxes arriving on our doorstep with clean underwear, with toiletries. The people really showed up. And it was a great way to kind of differentiate ourselves, because there are a lot of great real estate agents out there. But to say, if you join us, you're going to be part of this amazing impact. So it was a great opportunity.
I love it. And did you notice, as far as like for these people, like it's obviously helping them feel better about themselves, but is there any like, one thing I noticed, and we've talked about it in the past before, is like helping these people now take the next step, where it's whether it's applying for a job or whether it's trying to get housing or some sort. Like, I feel like that's extremely beneficial, not just like, hey, get clean so you don't smell, but like, how can we help you now get back into society? And I think a shower it's like essential, so that is huge. And then with the school now, have you been to Kenya? Like, how did you get to Kisii and like doing all that?
Yeah. So we were drilling wells on the other side of the continent. And then the organization that we were working with said, let's go to the other side of the continent and drill a well there. So my husband actually went out with that organization and talked to the villagers in this area of Kisii and said, we'd love to build this. We'd love to support this. What would it take? And it did take a little while, because it was really the beginning of COVID. So it took about 2 years. We did end up drilling a well in Kisii. We named it after one of the agents and a good friend of mine who was on my real estate team. She passed away just a couple years ago. And so, her legacy lives on. It's wonderful to see that impact. But while we were there, they were saying that it was really hard for people to continue education. There's just so much poverty, and the way things work there is very different than here. They don't feel like education, the government doesn't necessarily see education as a right, but a privilege. And so we decided that we would help to build a school for girls so that they continue their education beyond 4th grade. So that's what we're working on.
Awesome. And where's it at? Like, as far as how far in the process?
So the actual building is almost finished. There's inflation was everywhere. It's a global issue. And so it costs us about 25% more than we anticipated. So we are on a campaign to raise more funds for that. So anybody interested, we are building the school, and you'll be able to see the kids that are getting helped.
How can the person that wants to get involved, whether time and serving or just with a money donation, where can they get plugged in?
Yeah, thank you. So I guess the Instagram, you can send me a message, selling_DC. And I'm going to Kenya. I have not been. I'm going in June. I'm going by myself. So anybody wants to come along. For real?
I would definitely go with you. We won't.
Check your calendar.
Okay.
Amazing.
Seriously, let me know the details. And if we can work it out, I'd love to go with you.
Okay.
Seriously, that'd be so cool.
You've been to Africa. So
I have. I've been to Cameroon, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Wow. The way you're received over there it's it's humbling. It's almost like, man, I don't deserve this. It's crazy, but it's doing good work, and it's making a positive difference. So I'd love to tag along with you. Now, I mentioned it in your introduction. You guys are approaching $500,000 in total charity donations. What are you guys doing to raise money right now? We talked a little bit about where it's going, but if there's more things that it's going to, I want to make sure we don't leave anything unturned.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say, as far as raising money right now, I'm raising money for, I'm trying to think of what the organization is called. It's a little organization in DC. I've got it on my Facebook, but we're doing fundraisers all the time. This 500,000, that is what our real estate team has donated from our transactions during the lifetime of 12 years. So by March, we should be at $500,000, and it's gone to.
Sorry, I have ice in my mouth. I didn't want to chew it to make a loud sound.
Fine.
Sorry about that.
No, take your time.
Now, when you say giving a portion of your transactions, is this like a set number? Does it change depending on, factors?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say if anyone is just starting out, I think to protect yourself and be generous, putting a set amount for a certain organization could be really helpful, like to start out, because it is a transaction business, right? It goes up, goes down. So I think that's one way to start it. And now we've just been with a lot of charities for a long time that hit a lot of causes, and so if they have some special project they're trying to fund, or if they need to hire somebody, that's one thing I think we don't talk enough about in the nonprofit world, is we say, we just want to fund projects because it's sexy. But you can't grow an organization if you don't have the people. So I'm all about wherever the funds are most needed.
Cool. So having people and growing. Now with your real estate team, what is your role? How do you help grow that? What are you responsible for? What's a day in the life of Sheena look like?
Ooh, it is, people say all the time, can I come and follow you around? Oh gosh. Okay. We'll get up in the morning. We're going to check on the kids. We're going to make sure that they're all ready. I have 3 little kids, so making sure they're ready to go to school, and I get my workout in. So I do like a HIIT workout, either online or in person. I have to do that. That's like my therapy.
Yeah.
So I work. That's critical. And then I spend some time thinking about how we can bring in more business, or how my team can bring in more business. That is, been in real estate for 12 years and sold over 1,500 homes. Every single day I am thinking about how to bring in business. I think that's important. And I need to demonstrate that to my agents. So thinking about how to bring in business, and also how to give back to my team. I'm studying where am I seeing them slip? How can I support them? Not how I can punish them. How can I support them? And then working on imagination generation, just seeing how we can grow that and making sure that we're giving extraordinary value based on the challenges in the market today.
Nice. So it sounds like a lot of lead generation for the real estate team. What are some of the things you do for that? I see you're extremely active on Facebook. Is that majority of it social, or is it face-to-face? Is it events?
Yeah. The way we try to think about it is, when you go into some of these real estate classes, it's find somebody who wants to buy and sell a house today. That's where the mind is. And so I think that's where a lot of people get hung up. They get really scared. I don't want to force anybody. Well, heck, I don't want to force anybody either. All I want to do is help people. So that's what we go out in the world thinking. And that's how, when I teach my classes, I say it's time for a change in mindset. Let's go out and find human beings we can give value to. And that's what I think about. So I don't know, we can call it lead gen, or we could just call it human helping. And, maybe if you feel like we did something nice for you, you'll think about us when you think about buying or selling a home.
What's your favorite part about helping somebody buy or sell a home?
I think the opportunity at generational wealth is huge, and what that can do. So, my husband and I talk a lot about what we might do with this, with what we're building. And I have no interest in passing all this down to my kids. I know it's kind of a controversial conversation, and talk to me in 10 years, I may have changed my mind, but I think my kids have grown up so privileged in that they have seen their parents work hard. They've seen their parents change over time and grow and learn these habits, that I think they have everything they need to succeed. And so my hope would be to take, any wealth that we have created and put it in some sort of foundation that they can be in charge of. So.
Wow. Now, let's say, so it sounds like they're coming from a household of earning, and I came from a similar household, which I'm grateful for that experience. You know, I had to learn the value in things. When your kids get to the age of college, is that like they have to take out their own loans, or is that like mom and dad are going to help? And like, do you know how you're going to handle that yet?
Yeah, we have talked about that. We have been saving up for their college. They will pay for some portion of it. Absolutely. I worked all through college and I didn't have to. My parents paid for my undergrad, not my grad, but they paid for undergrad. So I paid for some housing and allowances. And I think it helped me to understand. I mean, I worked through high school too. So, but I enjoy it. Like that's like my drug, just being productive.
Yeah, I resonate with it. And not everyone's like that, but it sounds like your kids are probably going to end up with that trait as well, just being in the household that they're in. You have 3 kids. You have 2 boys and 1 daughter. Are you noticing they're picking up any traits, or like, do you see yourself or Han in them? And like, what's that like? And what traits are you noticing at this age?
Oh my goodness. If you want a mirror to who you are, an honest mirror, there you go. Have some kids. Yeah, my oldest, Kadri, he is so much like my husband. He's wicked smart. He is a procrastinator, which like goes against everything I stand for. So we're working on that. He's also very focused on money and making lots of money for what? To buy. So we're having a lot of conversations about that. But I tell him, you have to make a lot of money because, you know, we're having to do all this work. You're going to have to hire robots or something because, so make lots of money.
There's also a saying that if God has, or your creator has given you the ability to make a lot of money, it's your duty to do so. And it's how are you going to steward it? What are you going to do with it? But if you've been given the skill to accumulate money, it's your job to use that skill.
I love that.
Yeah. I try and lean on that because sometimes people think the pursuit of money is bad. And it's not the pursuit of money. It's why, you know, what are you going to do with those funds? Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I love that. And I agree wholeheartedly. My daughter is 9 and oh goodness, she doesn't look a thing like me, but she is me. It's scary. Sometimes I see her, 9 years old, she's outside doing HIIT workouts that she's created, written out for herself. She is always looking for ways to, start little companies. And then my 4-year-old Amir is fearless. He's definitely going to be a Marine. He's also like the kid who stands up in class and pulls his pants down to get everybody to laugh. That's also a little bit like me. So yeah, for better or worse.
Yeah. He's got no shame.
No.
He's ready to be himself no matter who's watching.
Yes.
Wow. Is it scary in this culture that we find ourselves in being a parent?
I try not to let the fear in, right? I think there's a lot of talk about that. I do think that I try to create a little bubble for my kids in that, the bubble is like, always look to help people, always look for growth, always look to try to understand people. I know we'll get to this at some point, but we talk a lot about religion in my house, and faith and lack of faith and all those things. Cause I want my kids to be open-minded. I don't care where they go with it. I just want them to be thoughtful.
And you've brought them out. I've been serving where I've seen you bring your kids. Do they look forward to it? Is it kind of like, Mom, what are we doing? Has that changed as they've done it more?
No and no. They have done so much volunteer work. Some days some weeks it's like, 6-7 hours, which even for an adult, that's a lot. Yeah. My kids were as young as 4 years old when they started doing real heavy volunteer work, but there's so much that kids can do. Once they're in it, they enjoy it. But I can tell you one thing, if you're thinking about getting your kids into this kind of work, I think you should. And just know that I'll tell you this story real quick. My daughter came and one day, she was 5 years old, she cleaned 25 showers, which is a lot. Like, I don't think I clean my shower 25 times in a year. So she did that and it was fun for her. And then we get home and she takes a shower and she's like, underneath the shower head, she comes out and she goes, I don't like the way the water is coming out of the shower head. Like, I don't like that it's like this and there's nothing in the middle. And I'm like, oh my God. So I talked to my coach and I'm like, I don't understand. What am I doing wrong? And he's like, Sheena, this is a process. It's not an event. So that's what I'm working with.
Yeah. No, and if I had to pick, I'd rather my kids be super aware and like noticing everything and trying to make changes as opposed to just being oblivious to the whole thing. One thing I saw you started doing recently, I think is so cool, the intentional time you're spending with your kids. And I think the post that I saw you specifically, don't take your phone with you. I just think this is amazing. I think families, individuals, everyone should take a little piece from this. Will you talk about what you do and how it's going so far?
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for recognizing that, because it is, it's getting a little bit easier. I guess it is getting easier now. I kind of look forward to it. I would say when I first started in my business, I was, so I didn't have kids yet. But the year my husband and I sold 88 homes together, which if you're in real estate, that's a lot of hustle for two people. And it was almost all buyers, which means we were going around the whole DC metro area. And I just had my second kid, and I swear I ignored ISIL for a year. I looked at my phone for her entire first year of her life. I looked up and went, oh my God, she's one. And still wasn't enough. I was still trying to build this thing. It's challenging building an organization. So just like these last few months, I've been thinking about like what really matters. I turned 40, that switch flip. And so, yeah, I've been going on adventures. Bob Goff, one of my favorite writers, talks about this a lot, going on adventures and just getting whimsy. And so that's what I do when they come home from school. I'm like, what adventure can we go on? Should we just drive to Baltimore and feed the homeless? Should we go to DC and walk around the monument, maybe race to see how quickly we can go from one end to the other? Just something magical, something special to remind them. And, I was worried about my kids going back and remembering me like this with a rectangle in front of my face. And I was like, I can't have that. And I don't know how much time I have here. So, yeah, I had to change, and it's going pretty well.
Yeah. My favorite part of that whole story is like not just going to DC, but racing around the monument. And a common theme I keep hearing is exercise. So physical health is important to you guys. Why?
Yeah, well, that was definitely indoctrinated from my parents. My mom was one of those jazzercise people, and we would go to her class and just watch her work out. She did karate. And my mom's like me. She's like this tiny little woman without any hips, but, doing all the push-ups and pull-ups. So, definitely got that from my parents working out, and it just makes me feel so much better. Like it is another one of my drugs, I guess, which is a kind of a good thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Right before we transition, like I have a goal for like who I want to speak to. Now the audience can be whatever it is, but there's like certain places where I'm like, man, I feel like I can give a little bit of light in that situation. Your ideal like demographic or who you would speak to, like who you want to kind of inspire, who is that? Or does that not matter to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think if I am thinking who I want to influence, I think it's the people who maybe are a little bit lost, maybe are a little unsure of themselves, and they have, which, gosh, I guess is almost, it's most people, I think. Most people don't realize all the capacity they have in them and all the potential they have, not just to change their own lives, to change their families, to have them see themselves differently. I think sometimes we have, they call them generational curses of like, either holding back from our fullest potential, not building that business that we want, all this fear. So I think trying to help people not necessarily eliminate the fear, but bit by bit, take it away and just do whatever it is they were meant to do.
And if they're not sure, they're like, yeah, I know I'm called to something, but I'm not sure what. Any advice on how to try and discover that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is probably to figure out who you want to become. Bob Goff. We'll just take a little virgin shot every time I say Bob Goff. He's really one of my influential leaders. So this idea that he talks a lot about becoming love, and he talks about Jesus. That's his thought process is like, we can talk a lot about what Jesus wanted, but what we need to do is become. So it's taking that action. So if you if that's your thing, if that you hear that and you're like, God, I just want to be a person who like loves people and people want to love me, that's something. If you want to be influential, that is something. If you want to be a healer, okay, what can you do? There are many avenues to all these things. Like I said, I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur, a business owner. And when I talk to people about getting into real estate, a lot of them haven't thought about it like that. So I hope to give them the opportunity to say, you can make this, you can design the life you want with real estate.
this prompted me a book that I did. You don't read it front to back, but it's called Strength Finders 2.0. Have you ever heard of it?
Yep.
Have you done it?
I think I read it in a in a bookstore at the airport, but I don't know if I've done it yet.
Okay, so you can buy it, and in the back there's a code, and you go online, you enter the code, and you take a test, and it'll tell you your top 5 strengths. And I think for somebody who's unsure, not sure where to start, that's a great place. If you go to Strength Finders, answer these questions, it'll tell you kind of where your strengths lie. For me personally, futuristic, I'm always forward thinking, and significance were my top 2, with like competition being in there, and the other 2 I'm not really sure of. But for me, it's like, if I don't think it's something huge and propelling me forward, it kind of bores me, and I get stuck on it. Do you know some of your strengths, like without doing the test?
I would say a lot of that. I think I am pretty optimistic, but I'm also rational. I am very, very competitive. I think I needed to modify what I was competitive about, because I used to be competitive with everything. I mean, everything was a competition, which helped me to get to this point. I don't regret it, but I think, I think that optimism and bringing people together for good is huge. Well, I had to ask you, were you surprised by your results? Because I'm not surprised.
No. I think it kind of just gave clarity to, that's not just something that sits up in my head. That's like on the forefront at all times. I knew, like, forward focused and wanted to do something big, but I didn't realize it's like my most important thing to me, as far as like something I can use. So yeah, I wasn't surprised by it, but it was eye-opening. I'm glad I did it, for sure. And it also will tell you where your weak points are. Like, as a futuristic, significant person, my number one need is an activator. I'm a dreamer. I'm a vision. But when it comes time, and I talked to Han, your husband, about this, when it came time to like actually getting in the weeds and doing A, B, C, D, not only creating that list, but acting on it, I have a harder time. I like to live in the dream. I like to live in the thought. When it comes time to putting it to work, that's where I can benefit, finding somebody that fans that flame.
I love that. That's it. And if people are listening, like, hear that. Maybe you need a partner. Maybe you just need a helper, but don't give up because you don't have everything you need right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exciting knowing that there's still more down the line, because I am optimistic about finding those people. And a quote I use all the time is wolves run together. So just finding that tribe, and our producer, Noam, we've only known each other a couple of months now, but Noam's one of those people. And I have some other friends as well. So I'm hopeful that everything's happening exactly how it should. You've mentioned books a couple of times, so I think this is a good segue to get into books. You're a huge reader, and you also mentioned you're reading a book right now by Bob Goff, who is a Christian author, but you don't really have Christian beliefs. And one thing I respect about you is how much you study belief systems. Will you talk a little bit about whether it's like a quirky belief that you're like, I cannot believe Christians believe this, or I cannot believe that is like a religious, like
doctrine, or
something like that. Thank you. Like, what kind of sparked your interest in, like, whether it's a good thing or obscure?
Oh, okay. Well, I thought about this in the car ride to explain this with empathy. When my husband and I were in college together, 9/11 happened, and there was a lot of hate and outrage against Muslims, and his family's Muslim. Someone threw a brick through his father's work truck. He owns a really well-known TV repair business in Maryland, and his name is across the truck, and it sounds pretty Middle Eastern. And so the violence had come to their doorstep, and my mom was Catholic, not really practicing. My dad was atheist. So I didn't really have too much knowledge of religion, or maybe even an interest in it. But I had this boyfriend who joined the military thinking like maybe that would keep him a little bit safe, and to show like he really is, a patriot. It felt like that was sort of needed at the time. He felt that way. And so we moved to our first station in Utah, and I read about 200 books, and one of those, I read 3 versions of the Quran, because I said, I know Muslims, they're not like that, but we see all these things about how evil they are. So I wanted to educate myself and step back and say, is this really reality? So that's kind of where that started. I also read the Book of Mormon when I was there, because that was a new religion that we were kind of getting to know out there in Utah. And of late, there's been a lot that I've seen in this country by so-called Christians, and I felt like it wasn't the love that I heard from other Christians, right? And so I thought, could this really be? Is this what Christianity is really about? Because I saw a lot of hate, and I saw a lot of people maybe not really caring about their neighbors, much less their enemy. So I said, you know what? I'm going to read the Bible. I gave myself 1 month to read it front to back. And I know that's maybe not the way you're supposed to read it, but supposed to. I'm a contrarian. So I read it. And the part that really got to me was the part about Jesus and how he loved people no matter what. And he loved people that other people would generally turn away. And so I decided to say, I think people of all religions, all spiritual backgrounds or lack thereof, like me, there is potential for good. And I'm going to look beyond the negativity because that's everywhere, and not cast people with this Christian label aside, because I felt like there was a lot of hate inside of me for it. Was just like battling the hate that I felt like I saw, and I didn't want to live like that anymore.
Yeah. Now, religion aside, what do you believe as far as afterlife?
I think what I believe is I haven't seen any evidence that there is something. There's nothing that has compelled me. I think it's different when you grow up in it. I think if you grow up in it, maybe there's a sense of it's the faith, right? You believe something without evidence. And I think if you don't grow up in it, it's hard to kind of create that. Some people do. I also feel like I'm pretty privileged. I think a lot of people go into religion and start to have this faith because life is so hard, and you want to know that there's something afterwards. And for better or worse, I haven't had those challenges. So I respect people who have those, but I just don't. I believe that there could be something or there could be nothing.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I grew up as one of those kids. And for me, I was taught to call it God. And I've prayed and I've experienced in life where I'm like, wow, that was God or whatever its name is. And I'm at the point now as a 31-year-old where there's certain things in the Bible where I'm like, well, I wasn't there. Like, I can't say that actually happened or didn't happen or went down that way. It's written by authors who are men and humans. So, there's certain parts where it's like, man, I can't prove that. Or I'm not saying, like, how could an all-loving God say that this is the only way? So I'm a logical person that does have faith. I had experiences throughout my life where it's like, oh, this is obviously something, but I try and be open-minded enough to be like, I'm not going to give it a title or say what its rules are or what it wants from us. And that's something developing now as like an adult. It wasn't always that way, but I was one of those kids. Mm-hmm. And it is something nice when you're in those trials to have something to lean on. But I wonder, like, do you view that sometimes as like, instead of taking personal responsibility and handling, is that like a shortcut out? Like, do you view it as that? Or do you think that like how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Not having been in there, I try very hard not to judge it and just hope that it's a gift and that one continues to use it, and most importantly, act on it. Like, if you feel like you have something in your life that has really helped you to get out of something challenging, I think now it's on you to change someone else's life. So if that means sharing Christianity with them, if it means just loving like Jesus talked about loving, or if it's just taking care of your neighbor with no religion attached to it, whatever it takes. But I think I guess I don't have any real judgment around people with that. It's hard. Life's hard.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you even going into it. I know religion and that kind of stuff isn't always the easiest to talk about. And a completely opposite question, but again, something that you're like, well, I don't have evidence of it. Do you believe life on other planets?
I believe that could be.
Yeah.
I suspect that maybe it doesn't look like you and me, that maybe it's more like, looks like bugs or something like that. But I could believe that to be true. Yeah.
All right. So not sure whether they're beyond technology wise, like surpassed us. It could be as simple as just like organisms and animals that don't really have the free will that we have.
Right.
And the ability to create like we do. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Books. I know we touched on Bob Goff. Yeah. You do you read so many different topics, and a lot of them are entrepreneur-based, business-based, faith-based. There's so many different types. Is there a book you would recommend like anyone read, or one that really made an impact on you?
Yeah, I couldn't do just one. I love that question. So I will say that it has really changed over time. For a time, I was reading, religious texts, and for a time, I was reading. A lot of the time, I was reading books on politics and how that's changed and policy. And then I realized it was again making me a little hateful and making me a person I did not want to be anymore. So I said, I'm not going to read these kind of books anymore because what you consume matters. So most recent books I think that really had that I would recommend to anyone: See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. That is an amazing book. That there is a spiritual side to that. And the idea is that if we were to start looking at each other not as strangers, every person we see, like, this is an extension of myself, what would the world look like? How much more empathy would we have? How much less violence would we have, on a one-to-one scale or on a global scale, if we just saw each other as friends? And so maybe we're not going to hit so hard or at all if we just see everybody as an extension of ourselves.
Can I cut you real quick?
Yeah.
I love that you're doing this, and I started doing it. Is it Hello Friend? Like you had a beanie or like a hat?
Oh, hi friend.
Hi
Yeah.
Friend. Talk about that, because I'm doing it and I love it. It works. It
Oh
works.
my God.
Yes.
Yeah, it totally works. It'll catch me off guard. So I was actually in Detroit giving a talk to a bunch of agents on how to build bigger businesses. There were a bunch of people in that room and so many givers. And afterwards, a lady sent me a t-shirt and a beanie that said, hi friend. And it's this woman's company. And that's like the movement she's trying to start, is like, see no strangers, basically. And people are like, I'll be at bars and they're like, hi friend. And I'm like, it still startles me, but oh man, it's awesome.
Yeah. I started using it so I go to the gym every day, and in the locker room, like going into the locker room, I go to the YMCA, and it's an older demographic, and these guys aren't afraid to talk like, oh, how you doing, young man? Hi friend. Like that's what I've started implementing. And you'd be surprised with like them saying it nonchalantly. And when you say hi friend, they look at you, they create a conversation. Next thing you know, we're talking, like I'll spend time in the sauna. We're talking about intermittent fasting and, what time we're eating and cold showers and all kinds of stuff, where it started off of hi friend.
Oh.
So,
in Scandinavia, they have this thing called human libraries. So instead of books, you have people who come and they just sit there, and you can come in and talk to people. And a lot of times it's older people who have, retired, but they have all these stories that we might never get if that library weren't there. The stories that you're getting right now, all that wisdom, if you didn't just open up the conversation. There's people walking by us all the time. Everybody has a story. I mean, how powerful.
So you're officially here at the first episode of our new podcast, which is Human Library. And today's episode is with Sheena Saydam. You are our human library today. That's sick. I love it.
I'm grateful. A few other books I wanted to mention. I Don't Want to Talk About It by Terrence Real. One of the most powerful books written 20 years ago, and it is about male depression. If you are a man or you have a man in your life, you should read this book.
Okay.
It's really about how men, it's just that. They don't want to talk about it. They want to push it down. And then what happens is it gets passed down to the next generation. So I think we have to give men the permission and the safe space to say that they feel things. It's okay to feel things. If you don't, you're not human.
Yeah. There's a song, it says, it's okay not to be okay. And, I come from a household where it's hard-nosed men,
Yep.
Get to work, worry about what you can control, don't worry about what you can't, and keep it moving, make a paycheck and blah, blah, blah. That was my father's viewpoint, and I'm grateful for that because I'm a hard worker. My mom's side is find what you love, make a difference, tap into that. So I am like a manic balance of like both extremes, where it's like roll up your sleeves, work hard. And then there's the other side. It's like, well, how does this make you feel? Mm-hmm. So as somebody who respects work ethic and men being tough, I also support men talking about their feelings and being honest and getting help. I'm huge on talking to a counselor in therapy. I grew up doing that. And a lot of people are scared of that. I like it. For me, it's like going to the gym. It's like working out. It's like, man, I can really express this. So I'm glad you made that point, because it's not easy for a lot of men to do that.
Yeah. Strong men will go out and get that help.
Yeah.
Go out and get it.
It's funny. We talked to our last guest about it. He was like, I didn't want to share those feelings because I thought it was weak. Mm-hmm. And my mom taught me at a young age, that's really strength. Yeah. The ability to be vulnerable, to say that you're weak, to say that you need help is actually a strength. And thank God, like I've done that and I've gotten that help. I've been pulled out of those problems. So
Yeah.
man, that's a great recommendation. But what is it, just easier for women? Like, is that why this book was specifically targeted for men?
I think that women, I think we are nurtured to nurture and to have feelings, like that's normal. So I think it is a little bit easier. I think societally that's what's expected. And women tend to process things verbally. So
Okay.
talking to somebody makes sense.
It's easier. Yeah.
Mhm.
What do you and your husband do for fun?
Oh, good question. Work? No.
Yeah.
A little bit of that. We do vacation. I have to say, we have been so lucky to go on amazing vacations ever since even since our kids were really little. Like, it's not easy to go with your kids on vacation. A lot of people say, it's so hard. Why? It's not even worth it. I might as well stay home, or they won't remember it. Well, I'm not here for them necessarily remembering it. First of all, I'll remember it and we'll take pictures and video. And we like to look back as a family. We go through our videos. Sometimes even at dinner, we'll have the laptop on and say, oh, remember this time? So maybe embedding those memories a little bit better and just teaching them how other people live, other cultures. So we enjoy that. We both do work out a lot, not always together. We're working on doing things together a little more. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you do everything together, it seems like. So the fact that you guys are trying to carve out more time together is a testament to a healthy foundation.
Yeah. Well, I will say the way our business is, like, we will just not be together all day. Like, he does his thing and I do my thing and we're passing in the night. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
we need to be a little more intentional.
He is like, when you say a numbers guy, like he is that activator. Like how I said, for me, being futuristic, an activator would help. I see Han as your activator.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's in the weeds. Like, and it's like, does he enjoy that or is he just good at it?
Loves it. He was an aerospace engineering major. He's really good with, he's lucky in that he's good with numbers. So yeah, he loves that. He's the implementer. I come up with all the ideas and he has to do all the work.
Nice. Nice. Well, it's work to come up with the ideas that you do because they're different. They stand out. They make a huge impact. So I know a ton goes into that, but it's nice that you can have somebody that is not only enjoying it, but really good at where you kind of need some help or would like some help.
Absolutely. That's a privilege.
Yeah. What's it like leading a team? Like you have all these people under you and you guys have a ton of fun, but there's a ton of responsibility in it also. Mm-hmm. What's that like?
Yeah. I mean, when we started the team, so I started 12 years ago, he came in 3 or 4 years into it. And that's when we started to build. And I took lessons from people who were succeeding. But what you realize is there's a lot, like you can look on social media, you can see numbers, but not everyone is doing things maybe that aligns with your values. And so I was doing a lot of things that maybe didn't align with my values, but I thought were necessary to succeed. And one of those was creating a very strong sales culture. And it kind of blew up in our faces. And we lost about half of our team, which, like, good. It was good for them. It was good for us. Like,
why? Because they scaled and they were good at their job, or how'd you lose them?
Well, what happened was
what had happened was I
think I kept telling them, like, I had in my mindset, everybody wants to work 40 to 60 hours and be as successful as possible. And so I kept giving business. I had so much business to give. And most people real estate agents are like, oh my God, if I could get on a team where I'm making $200,000 in a year, they're like, sign me up. But not everyone is interested in doing that work. And these are not lazy people. These were hardworking people, but they're just weren't interested in working at that pace.
Yeah.
But I kept giving them more and more business and putting them in a place where they weren't comfortable. So eventually they just burnt out. I like to say we do a really good job of creating luxury agents because most of them go to luxury firms after us. We train really well. And but we've learned along the way. So right now, yeah, I am loving leading now because I think I've learned a lot of things. I've spent a lot of time studying the empathy, the psychology. I'm not one of those people who needs a pat on the back. I don't need someone telling me, like, here's what you need to do today. And so I just assume everyone is like that. But then I had to realize we aren't all built the same. And these people all have value. And so I need to figure out how I can tap into what motivates them and help them live their best lives. So I'm loving it now.
Now you invest in those people and figure out how to make it work, or do you look for a different person that wants to take on that business that you're trying to give?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Both.
Yeah.
both. And I think with this market has really shifted. The market is down about 40%. So as before, we were looking for people that were just really good at servicing clients. We didn't necessarily need people who were going to go out there and get business. Now it has shifted to, if we're looking for somebody, it's got to be somebody who's ready to go and not necessarily ask for the business, but help people. Go out there and just do whatever you can to make things better and easier for people, and the business will come.
Yeah. You guys do a lot of team building, a lot of fun events. Is that your idea? Is that like the envision behind it? And it looks like you guys invest a lot of money in that. So do you see team building as a positive return on investment? Like, can you measure that? Or is it just like, let's just keep pushing it, trusting it?
Yeah. So a lot of the celebrating and fun we have is with past clients or people who have been supporting us. So that we do have sponsorship from our vendors because we are very loyal to our vendors, our loan partners, our title partners. So yeah, I think we see the return on that of people feeling like we care and we love them. Yeah, I think for sure.
You did a competition. You like split your team in half and had them each host a holiday party.
Yeah.
Who won? How'd it go?
Oh my gosh. There was a lot of crap talking. Should I say that? Like back and forth.
You could be yourself. You say whatever you want.
A lot of shit talking, which was so fun to watch because we're not really that kind of team. So that was awesome. So I think one team brought, oh God, like 85 people, and the other team did maybe half that much. So it was they really killed it. But they both held beautiful events. They were amazing. They learned a lot. And I think they got into discomfort because usually I'm planning the events, I'm setting it up, they just show up. So this was different. This was a lot of different tactics that they had to employ. And I think it was good for them to feel that.
Did anybody employ a tactic that you're either picking up or surprised you? Like, wow, okay, go ahead.
You know what? I think one thing that was different, which I thought was really interesting, which I was kind of against at first, but I'm like, hands off, let's see how it works, is usually our events are about 3 hours long. They made this event only 2 hours. And I thought, gosh, that's hardly enough time, but are people really going to come? People just followed the rule and they came for 2 hours and it was packed and it was fantastic. So I like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of those things where like the Elvis movie, he wouldn't perform with empty seats. So it's like, I'd rather do 2 hours packed than 4 hours and it's at 20% capacity average. So, it seems like it worked for them in that case. Because if you miss and nobody really comes, now you see, well, it's only a short window and it wasn't super successful. So, it's funny, like what we do and is it going to pay off or not? But it sounds like even on the smaller one, it still paid off.
Absolutely.
And was a great event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. With this $500,000 you guys are raising, like it's incredible, but I'm sure you're not going to stop there. Like what are goals moving forward? More money, where it's allocated, what's down the pipeline for you?
Yeah. So the $500,000 is money that we've just donated. We've probably raised almost $1 million by now for our various charities. So I think through Imagination Generation, we look to grow that. And we're going to start to take account of what everyone is doing because there's a lot of realtors out here raising money, doing good. I know of somebody else, Keller Williams, he's in California. He went with his church group to Mexico and he was walking, there's like these big trash heaps, like these dumps, and there's people walking along them. And he found families were dropping off their daughters to be trafficked to the security guys there. And he's like, well, we can't have this. We can't have this. So he donated, he's donated and raised over $1 million to help combat that and get these girls out of trafficking. So that was some really powerful stuff. So I think connecting with more people like that who want to do good, I think that's going to be important. I think we try to, be smart about it. So I think the two things are, as our business grows and we're more successful, we're able to donate more. And then kind of being incubators for other businesses. So who knows what's next? Really, I'm kind of in the weeds right now with Imagination Generation, just like what value can we give and trying to just get as many people here as possible. And then I think we grow the vision.
Nice. Well, I will stay tuned. Thanks. And I'm excited to see where it goes. Before I get you out of here, I know you're busy and I don't want to take too much of your time. If there was one person you'd recommend we bring on the pod and we interview somebody else, do you have a recommendation for that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way over. I would love for you to talk to. She's a very different personality than I am, which is fine. and different. Her name is Mary Schroth. Have you met her?
I don't know off of the name.
She's a real estate agent, and she came to the shower truck, and she has her own story with her mom and what she has been through and her struggles. And so I think that that's what got her heart into this, because she saw her mom struggle. And she came and she asked a lot of questions through text to me. And she's very faith-based. And I think she was kind of struggling with that. Like, I want to love them, but I'm also like, why are you living like that? Right? And coming down to the shower truck, I think really changed her perspective to where she is so all in with squeegee boys. Some of them stay at her house so they can get the special education that they need. She is raising money for them, getting them bikes, which kind of helps them stay out of trouble. She's working with the city to get them into employment, safe employment, so they're not sitting out here on the streets. I mean, the things she has done is just so extraordinary. With every transaction, she donates $400 to help squeegee boys. So I would love for you to interview Mary.
Do you think she'd bring a squeegee boy on with her?
Yes.
That would be awesome, because
Yeah.
I see both sides.
Yeah.
You know, I see kids that don't have the same opportunity, that don't have access to jobs in other areas, and the areas they're in are underserved. But I also sympathize for the person who's scared to drive down to the red light, because there are some bad things that happen.
Oh, yeah.
So to bring them on, we're definitely going to reach out to her. And I appreciate her as the recommendation, because I mean, we're filming in Baltimore City as we speak. This is our community. And if there's anything we could do to try and like bring both sides together, I'd love to be able to do that. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think there's a lot of to understand what these kids live with every day, what they lack, is would be startling to a lot of people, and not to excuse violence, but to maybe try to understand.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I'll reach out. I know you're busy. I'll reach out to you and see if you want to come on as maybe a co-host if you're available that day.
Yeah, love that.
If not, no worries, but we appreciate you so much. Hey, Noam, will you go ahead and we got a couple gifts for you. We got a jacket and a coffee mug.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I want to make sure we get you out of here with something to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. You can go ahead and open the mug up if you want. The track jacket is custom made. You're the only one with a white one currently.
Oh my God.
It's a size small. I thought it would fit you.
Perfect. Oh my God, I love it.
If you need a medium or something different, just let me know.
This is me.
Cool. Cool.
you.
No, it's my pleasure. Is there anything you want to make sure we cover before I get you out of here?
I think if people take anything from this, it's like, note how you feel when you're going about your day. Like, really be intentional and thoughtful. I think that's sort of like being present about who you're with, what you're consuming, what you're spending time with. I know for a while there, I was really kind of almost addicted to having these controversial conversations. And I love talking about religion. I love talking about politics, to understand people. And if you're doing it in a way that's just kind of to fuel the flame or to show how right you are, maybe try to transition into showing what love looks like. Right? Because I think we need more of that. Our next generation needs more of that. Like, let's leave the world better. Like, I don't know what comes after this. I don't know if there is something, whether there isn't, but what we know for sure is we are here right now. So let's just try to be the best humans we can be.
I love it. Sheena Saydam, you're incredible. Thank you so much for being on this episode of Questions Over Coffee. To everybody who stuck with us, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you haven't seen episode 1, go back, check it out. But if you'll give us a like, hit the subscribe, and check us out for episode 3. We're going to have Dave Heiliger as our third guest, an amazing guy. You won't want to miss it. But from everyone here at Questions Over Coffee, we'll see you next time. Peace.